No one wants to risk food poisoning. It's nasty anywhere, but doubly so when you're cruising and far from medical care. There's a simple and compact solution to help you avoid it by avoiding cross-contamination in your galley. Hey, I'm Carolyn Sherlock, and on this episode of the Boat Galley podcast, I'll share why you need a set of flexible cutting boards in your galley. Now, the Boat Galley podcast is sponsored by FastSeas.com. Plan your next passage using Fast Seas. Whether you're after speed or comfort, Fast Seas will find the optimum route to your destination. Fast Seas, making weather routing simple. Use coupon code GALLEY2018 for an exclusive 10% discount. Okay, cross-contamination, in other words, getting things from like meat juice and so forth onto vegetables and things like that, particularly if they're not going to be cooked. That is one of the biggest sources of any sort of food poisoning. And food poisoning is one of the worst things that can happen to you when you're out cruising and away from anything. I mean, obviously things like major broken bones and so forth, but food poisoning is a serious worry when you're away, because if you don't have the ability to get IVs and so forth, dehydration can be a huge problem. So let's talk about a simple way to avoid the cross-contamination issues. Now, some boats have built-in wooden cutting boards or ones that fit over the stove or sink. And they really, any sort of cutting board like that can be a real source of cross-contamination. If you want to use these types of things, but avoid the cross-contaminations from cutting meats and other foods on the same surface, or you simply don't want the aesthetics of the wood turning black, flexible cutting sheets are a really good option. These flexible sheets, they're like a 1/16 of an inch thick. They're about the size of a placemat. They take almost no storage space, and you can cut them as needed to fit any space that you have. So if they're too big for your cutting area and like hanging off the edge of the counter or something, you can just cut it down. A pair of kitchen shears works really well, better than any sort of a knife, to cut it, because these are cutting boards. They're made to resist knife cuts. Scissors work much better. Now, I have no idea how long a set will typically last, because mine have always been hijacked on the boat for some other purpose long before they were worn out. Every time that we've needed a divider for something, Dave's eyes would light on my cutting sheets and one would go missing. Consequently, now, generally when I buy a set, I actually buy 2 sets, so that when he wants one, I can just hand one over. They're cheap. They're a good thing for a lot of things. Some people also use them not just on wood, but on Formica or Corian surfaces. They can be a little bit hard here for your knife blade to have them on a really hard surface. Placed on a wood board, they're really good. And they do work on Formica. I mean, I've used them there without a problem. I really like, and left a link in the show notes for the Norpro cutting sheets. They come in a set of 3 with icons on them for different uses: produce, seafood, and meat. That way it makes it so that you're not using them for the wrong thing. You can choose between all white boards or ones that are different colors: red for meat, blue for seafood, and yellow for everything else. I really like the colored ones, as it makes it much easier to be sure that I'm grabbing the correct one. And since they're flexible, it's easy to pick these up with chopped food on them and just sort of make a funnel shape to dump the food into a pan or a bowl without spilling it. Now, the only downside is, since they are thin, there's no juice groove on them to keep meat juices from dripping over the edge and onto the surface below. They're a wonderful addition to any galley, and as I said, they're very useful. Now, one particular note: even though you're keeping cross-contamination down by using separate sheets, after you've used one, always spray it down with a bleach solution after washing them off. That will help any lingering little bits of food that are there from turning into something like E. coli. Anyways, take care, enjoy. I hope you found this episode of the Boat Galley podcast informative. We try to teach something with every episode. Please be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app. And if you have cruising friends, tell them about us also. Thanks.